Welcome to another edition of Uncensored. On October 7, Hamas militants entered Israel. They killed about 1,400 Israelis and abducted 200 of them, including grandchildren and grandparents. It was another wound inflicted on the long, dark history of persecuted Jewish community. There's an eerie silence across the Israel. How the common Israelis are coping with it, what are their fears, and what is the trauma they are facing right now. To understand it, we are joined from Tel Aviv, Danny. Danny, welcome to our program.
Hi, thanks.
Danny, please tell us viewers first, where were you when this incident happened?
When this happened, I was visiting my family in America for the Jewish holidays. I go home every year and a half or so to see my family for a few weeks. So that was my trip home to see my family. Hamas chose to attack on a very holy holiday for us. On that day, I was in America, and so I had to fly back immediately because I had a friend staying at my house, a German friend, but she was evacuated by her government, so she had to go back to Germany when the war started. So I had to come back into a war zone on a day's notice. It was really scary from California. I flew in from California.
So, Danny, if I'm not wrong, you came back to Israel in this troubling time and war zone because of your pets.
Yeah, I came back because of my animals. I have my own rescue. I've rescued hundreds of pets over the years, but I have now 13 of my own cats, 2 dogs, and a whole colony of street cats that I feed and take care of. And they're only alive because of me. I couldn't leave them here. I had to come back. I had to honor my responsibility. They're my family, and I had no choice but to come back and take care of them.
I understand it's a very moving thing that you have done. So, I mean, Danny, first tell me, when you reached the Tel Aviv airport and you came out of it, what was your feeling like? What was the situation outside the airport?
I'll start with the flight over because the whole thing was a weird experience. First of all, getting on a flight with people being repatriated to a war is very scary. No one spoke. It was almost like a plane full of people flying into a burning house. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to do. It was perfect silence. People, there were soldiers around me who I could see on their phones planning where they were going to be sent to. They're coming from, family-owned Kippur dinners and going into a war. It was very scary. But there was a feeling maybe of solidarity on the plane. I don't know. Getting off, there was a lot of apprehension, a lot of fear, a lot of panic, because again, we didn't know exactly what situation we were heading into. All we knew was that Israel had been attacked and there was a war. And we'd seen the images on television, just like the rest of the world. The rest of the world watched it on television, though, and we decided to go into it. The airport was full of people trying to flee, mostly families, people with kids, everyone just trying to get on any flight they could to wherever, except that almost everything was canceled. So people were waiting for any flight, cancellation after cancellation, rebooking. And I took a taxi home and the roads were pretty nearly empty, which doesn't happen in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is a metropolis. It's a metropolis like any other major city on earth, lots of cars. There were almost no cars on the street. The only sound was explosions. Got home, got inside my house, surrounded by, the sound of bombs. I was in probably shock, panic. I don't know. I somehow managed to do a few things, take care of my pets, drink some water, get in bed, put in earplugs to try to block out the sound, because I had to try to block out some of the input. It was too scary. It was too scary walking into a war by myself and having a huge responsibility, which was all my pets, to keep calm and care for. So that was my experience coming out of the plane and getting home.
Okay, Danny, when you reached your home and then you must have talked to your neighbors also. And what were the things they were talking about? And what advice did they give to you? So could you please tell us?
The first thing that we were told was to get somehow 3 days worth of food and water. We didn't know what would be available. We don't know if the water would be shut off, if it would be bombed, if we had no idea what was going on. Everyone got a message, get 3 days worth of food and water. So I filled all of my pots and everything with water from the taps, all my bottles. Food I managed to get the next day. There was a shop open, very little on the shelves, but I managed to get, just some basic staples, which is good enough. And we were told, I don't know what we were told. There hasn't been a huge amount of information from the bottom down because the government and the army were also caught in a panic and no one knew what was happening. No one was in charge. No one knew what was happening. Everyone was in a state of shock and panic and fear. So we were trying to communicate between each other on local WhatsApp groups, what's happening? Has anyone heard from so-and-so? Does anyone know if so-and-so returned from, the festival, the Nova Festival? Of course, everyone knows people who died there. People were trying to check up on each other and figure out the situation and understand if we're allowed to go outside. It was beyond frightening. I don't have words to describe that kind of fear.
So, Danny, how you are describing the situation, it's really like you're living in a war zone.
Yeah. For the last few days, it's quieted down. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if Hamas has been weakened or if they're waiting for something else, a big explosion. I don't know what's happening. It's been pretty quiet in Tel Aviv the last few days. Up until a few days ago, we were heavily bombarded. Lots of sirens, lots of bombs. The explosions are so loud, they make your head hurt. And I don't have a bomb shelter, so I'm just sitting in the stairwell with my dogs. And now I can't remember the question.
So, okay, tell me, Danny,
What was the question?
I'm
sorry.
What I'm saying is, what I wanted to ask you is that, it was literally like entering a war zone.
Yes, it was, of course. I entered a war zone. And living in Israel, we're used to war. It's something that's almost a constant. It's like on a cycle of a few years. But this was a different kind of thing. This was a completely different level of war. And so I wasn't prepared for it.
Danny, this is a point I wanted to ask you, is that you said you are living, Israelis are living in a state of war for quite a long time, and they're quite used to some kind of skirmishes, some kind of confrontation. But this was different. So what made you say that this was different? Could you please elaborate?
The difference is that we were attacked on our land by a terrorist organization. It was like being attacked by Al Qaeda or ISIS. Is the same thing that happened in Syria, the same thing that happened in Afghanistan. They came over our border. These guys, killed everyone and took back a bunch of old ladies and babies to hide under their city and sit on them as human shields. It's not something that happens in a civilized world or civilized country. We're completely unprepared. We never thought that this kind of thing could happen. We're used to being stabbed and shot in the streets. Terror is sadly part of daily life here in Israel. We're used to random, rockets from Gaza, but we have the Kupat Barzel, the Iron Dome, that protects us from them. So that more or less is a method of psychological warfare. But this was a completely different thing. This was 9/11. This was the invasion by ISIS of Syria. I don't know why there's so many people in the world who can understand that and understand our perspective, but this was the same as an attack by ISIS.
So, I mean, exactly, the people across the world are not, either they're not understanding or they don't want to understand the gravity of the situation on the ground, what the Israelis are going through. So, I mean, Danny, could you please, by chance, have you ever met any family who got affected by this attack?
Of course, everyone knows at least one person who was killed or abducted. It's a tiny country and 1,400 people killed and 200, and I think 22 they announced today, captured, which includes foreigners, by the way. They're not all Israeli. These people came in and shot and killed and raped everyone they could find. 19 Nepalese college students. I think it was 19, or they killed Tanzanians, they killed Thai people, they killed Arabs, they killed Bedouins. They didn't care. So I can't say that it's all Israelis or all Jewish people. It's not. It's something else that people don't understand about Israel, is that we're not all white Jewish people. But yeah, I mean, one of my cousins was at the Nova Festival and all his friends were killed. He's not my, I think he's a first cousin. He's a cousin's cousin. My friend had her friends killed. A neighbor had his friends killed. Another neighbor was abducted. Everyone knows people. Everyone.
So, how you have described it, I mean, everyone knows, it's a very small country, so everyone knows, to a certain extent, is known to each other. So, what you are suggesting is that the entire country is in a state of shock and mourning.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The north has been evacuated. The south has been evacuated. So mostly people are kind of in the middle. And I'm in the middle. I'm in Tel Aviv. It's considered to be a safer area. But if you consider that our country is like 5 hours across, there's nowhere safe. And people have just started to wander out of their houses as of yesterday. I noticed it about 5 o'clock. Suddenly there were just people on the street. I think people got sick of sitting at home. But they walk like zombies. It's not, people aren't functioning or looking or talking or moving like normal people. Everyone is scared. Everyone is shocked. People aren't sleeping. They can't talk. They can't smile. They can't look you in the eyes. There's no communication, no interaction. It's like zombies. It's like dead people walking down the street. And you only go out to get where you have to go. And
yeah, I can understand. So, Danny, I mean,
I'm sure you understand.
Yeah, when I was talking to you earlier also, I could get a sense what you were saying is that there is a sense of suspicion and fear in the air, and it's also affecting the Israelis, right?
Right. Unfortunately, Israel is a population that's fairly integrated. We have every kind of person on earth living here, but there's a certain sector of the population, of the Arab population, that wants to kill the Jews. They're not all from outside of Israel. They're not all from Gaza and the West Bank. Some of them live right here. And we live with each other, and really there's no problem. We coexist. It's really not a big deal. I mean, the Arabs are next door. I don't care. Everyone is friends. But the suspicion is that the bad guys, the Arabs who are here who want to kill us, might be walking down the street looking for victims, like they're known to do, on an average day, but especially when there's a war. So we walk around waiting for bomb sirens. You're always scanning for the closest bomb shelter or stairwell. And in addition to that, you're looking at people and assessing, I hate to say it, but possibly their race, possibly their religion. Do they have a knife in pocket? Because they do a lot of stabbing, the terrorists here. Does he maybe have a gun? And you assess each person up to down for risk. Not out of racism, but out of fear and practicality. We have to be alert to who's on the street and who might be here trying to just kill us while we walk outside our houses.
I can understand.
So there's not suspicion. There's not suspicion of your average people. Israelis are very friendly, open people, and they really love each other. It's not a suspicious society, but there is this suspicion of the bad guy. There's this fear that the bad guy might be amongst us.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's really it.
That's really the case. I can understand what is the ground situation out there. So, Danny, I mean, this incident was, it has not never happened in the long history or for quite long time in the Israel. After the Holocaust, such a figure of casualties the Israelis have not encountered at any point of time. So, I mean, if I'm not right, it wrong in
Not
assuming
exactly. It's not exactly right. There have been massacres in Israel.
they have not of this scale.
Not of this scale.
Yeah.
No, this scale probably hasn't. I don't know all of history in the whole world, but I think
Yeah.
this scale hasn't happened since the Holocaust against the Jews. It's happened against other people.
Yeah, I mean, Danny, as a Jewish, not many people talk about the Holocaust, but prior to that, in 1921, also 70 Jews were killed. In 1929, Jewish-Palestinian conflict, about 80 people have already died. So there's a long history of Jewish people having been died by the hands of Palestinians. I mean, the context may be different, but they have died. So it's a continuation of that process, but the world is not talking about that. I don't know why. So, Danny, when you have, I know a horrible thing has happened at hospital in Gaza. I understand that, but throughout the world, there have been so many rallies in support of the Gazans people. I can understand.
First of all, let's clarify. The thing that happened at the hospital was jihad's fault. That was an own goal. They bombed their own hospital. So let's clear that up.
Okay,
that has nothing to do with Israel.
Yeah, I'm not going into that argument. Who did it? I take your point. It was a self-code. But what I'm trying to ask you is that so many rallies are being held in support of the Gazan and the Palestinian people, but there are not so much rallies being happening across the world in support of Israelis who have suffered so much. I mean, what you make out of it, and then how do you, as a Jew, see the world?
It's a long and sad story. Being Jewish isn't easy. I was lucky to grow up in California where it's a little easier. But we grow up in the shadow of the Holocaust if we're European. We grow up in the shadow of the expulsion from Arab lands if we're Arab or North African. A lot of pain in Jewish history. Mostly people seem to hate us for whatever reason. Which I don't understand, but whatever. And so it's a confirmation. When I see hours after an attack like this on Israel, I see people marching in London to kill the Jews. It's a sad confirmation of what I already knew. I've lived in Europe. I know the Europeans. I know that there's still an undercurrent of very strong Jew hatred, even though most of them won't admit it. There's also another problem in Europe, which has gotten more pronounced, which is the immigration from Syria and from Lebanon and from Turkey and all of these Middle Eastern, North African countries. And these people were fleeing ISIS, but they imported their hatred for Jews. So they're marching on the streets saying, ISIS can't kill us, but they can kill the Jews. And they're doing it in a foreign country that doesn't support that kind of behavior. Not that all of the people are marching are Arab or even Muslim. I'm sure some of them are stupid Jewish people. The irony is that they fled it themselves, but they celebrate it when it happens to us. Simply because we're the other and they've been taught to hate us. Most of these people have never met a Jewish person. Most of them come from countries where Jewish people haven't existed since the 40s. So it's a hatred of concept, of a nothing, of, I don't know, because I don't understand hatred or prejudice. I don't know how it happens. It doesn't make sense to me. But all of this, it doesn't surprise me to see that the world is on the side of Gaza. Gaza is seen as the underdog. They're seen as the the minority, even though something like 70% of Israel is non-white. They're seen as the poor ones, they're seen as the victims, they're seen as the downtrodden, all of these things that activists love. And activists love these groups unconditionally. They're the cool groups to like. You like the underdog. Gaza, I don't know if it's because of their media or because of Hamas or because of the personality of the people, but they've exported an image of desperation and victimhood. And they've become a cause du jour. And people will latch on to it. People who need causes latch on to the Palestinian cause because it's very easy. It's very obvious. It's popular, it's cool, it's acceptable to hate Jews.
Yes.
So for all of these things, I mean, if this had happened, this same thing just happened in Ukraine and the world stood by Ukraine. And no one was marching for Russia.
Yeah.
And they invited Ukrainians into their homes and they sent, presents. It's pretty much only Jewish people doing that now for the Israelis. The world hasn't, as I've seen, besides government, the governments have been amazing in their support of us. American government, a few of the European, Latin American governments have really, really supported us well, which is amazing because I wouldn't have expected it, again, because I'm Jewish and no one really backs us up usually. But I haven't seen it from the populace so much. I assume that most of the people in the marches for Israel are Jewish. Not all of them, but I assume, again, because I've experienced as being a Jewish person, that they're mostly Jewish and that people generally don't support us or care that much. We're that other that no one likes.
I mean, Danni,
and so they can't sympathize.
So, Danni, what you are saying is that Jewish as a small community, they had the people across the Europe and US also. I'm not talking about our part of the world. They have got certain prejudice against the Jewish, which continue to play out again and again. Am I right? Am I right?
Of course, we all know that.
Yeah.
It's the oldest hatred that exists.
So
it's the oldest and most persevering hatred that has existed.
I mean, without any substance or rational thinking, the hatred continues to exist, continues to play. That the undertones of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid, but it somehow exists.
Yeah, it exists. So what I wanted to ask you is that Israel is a very small community, small place, and Jews are a very small community. So in this time of the history, at the present time, so what I'm assuming is that Jews have come to realize that we have to fight ourselves for our existence, and this is our existential fight, right?
Yes, exactly it. It's exactly it. That's what Israel was built on. And that's the only reason it exists. We needed a place where no one was going to kill us for being what we are, which is a group of people who share common beliefs, genetics, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. All we are is a group of people, but everyone to kill us. We escaped, few people escaped, the pogroms, the Holocaust, the expulsions. They made it here and they said, we're not going to be battered down again. We're not going to let anyone come in and massacre again. We're going to have the world's best army. We're going to make the best friends. And with America, we're going to have the best intelligence. We're going to make the smartest things we can. We're going to make the best medicine and we're going to defend ourselves. And that's what Israel is about. That's really what it's about. It's a country that exists. I don't even know. By its own willpower, its need to exist. There's nowhere for us to go. There's nowhere else for us to go.
Yeah, true. You don't have borders to cross over to move to another country. That's all. You are fixed in that part of the geography of the world. Unless and until you fight for yourself, there's no other way out.
There's no other way out. There's no way out. I can't get out right now. I would like to get out. I have all of my animals. I can't get out. I can't go north, I can't go east, I can't go west. There's nowhere to go. Every single border is hostile, even if they call themselves peaceful, we can't get across. If I went to Jordan, they'd kill me. If I went to Egypt, they would kill me, and I can't swim the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Flying out, not really an option with my pets. So I'm stuck.
Yeah.
A lot of people are stuck.
So, Danny, we are coming at the fag end of our program. One or two questions I wanted to ask you.
Okay. Sure.
So, the US has sent its carriers just few days back. Has it given a sense of security to the common Israelis?
Yes, it's amazing, and we're so grateful. Israelis are so grateful to America. It's the first time anyone stood up for us, ever. To have those American ships on our side and to have the commitment to protect us is incredibly encouraging and priceless and amazing. The other countries who said that they're on our side, they back us up. They understand why we've had to go attack Gaza. It's also very, very encouraging to finally have someone tell us that it's okay to defend ourselves, because we're used to hearing that we're not allowed. It's no matter what it is, if we fight back, it's disproportionate. No matter what, we're not allowed to fight back because we have good weapons and they have bad ones. And so it's not fair. It's like, well, they started it. They're killing us. You know, if they throw rocks at us, but we have missiles, we're going to shoot the missiles back and not the rocks. Like, they started it, and it doesn't need to be proportionate. Unfortunately, that's the way war is, and no one here wants to see anyone get hurt on the other side. I have to tell you, with God's honest truth, everyone here sympathizes with the people in Gaza. They talk about it endlessly, everyone. But we have to defend ourselves.
We have to defend ourselves. So my last question to you, Dan, is that what you were saying, and what I'm trying to understand from you, Israelis are prepared for any kind of eventuality.
Right now or in general?
Right now, in the present crisis, they are prepared for any eventuality mentally.
I don't think you can be mentally prepared. I think that we know that anything might happen.
Exactly, this is what I was asking.
We know anything might happen. We understand that anything can happen. You can't prepare yourself for it. The fear doesn't go away. The feeling in your guts, the panic, the sleeplessness, none of it goes away. So we're not prepared, but we understand.
So what you were saying is that you are not prepared mentally, because the fear is so overpowering. I mean, it's so overpowering. And when you see something, a drastic eventuality staring at you, I can understand the feelings which might be you are common Israelis might be going through. But one thing is there, the Israelis are resilient and they have resolved to fight it out.
Yeah, basically, yes. The people who are here are determined to stay and fight it out and defend their homes, even if defending it just means living in your house and helping your neighbor get food from the grocery store. Again, it's an existential threat, and Jewish people have nowhere else to go. Yeah. So most people are staying and saying we have to figure it out. We have to somehow defend this place.
Yeah. Danny, I understand what you're saying. This is what I repeated in my questions also. Israelis are going through an existential threat, but they have resolve and resilience to pass through it also. Danny, thanks a lot for sparing your time, and I will pray that you stay safe, and this time shall also pass, and we will talk to you in future also to get to understand how the situation has panned out till now. Stay safe. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for caring to listen. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Thanks a lot. Bye.